For centuries, the Galactic Council prided itself on order. It cataloged stars, archived worlds, and judged civilizations. Every new discovery was meticulously documented, given a name, and sorted into the grand archives. To the Council, knowledge was dominance, and dominance was survival. So when the small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star appeared on their registers, they dismissed it as they had dismissed thousands before. It was catalogued blandly as Earth, primitive, divided, irrelevant. But history has a cruel way of revealing what arrogance hides. It began in the depths of the Council archives, a labyrinth of star charts, coded records, and forbidden histories. A team of archivists was tasked with digitizing relic data, tedious work, digging through scrolls of dying empires and languages long extinct. Yet one of them, a minor scholar named Selvari, uncovered something unusual, a fragmented slate predating the Council itself. On its surface, carved into metal that no fire or decay had erased, was a single word: Terra. At first, it meant nothing. A word, a name. But when the algorithms cross-checked it, alarms flared across the data network. The slate linked to forgotten chronicles, sealed records never meant to resurface. Words translated, voices of the dead returned. Terra's legions marched. An empire forged from blood and iron. They do not yield. They never yield. Selvari frowned. Terra, she whispered. But this matches the coordinates of... Her blood froze. It matched Earth. Within hours, whispers spread across the Council. Earth's real name is Terra. At first, leaders scoffed. Names changed. Worlds evolved. But then came the flood of forgotten testimonies, unearthed with the slate. Translated accounts of civilizations extinguished, their last words etched in despair. Beware the Terrans, for they do not conquer worlds, they erase them. If you see their banners, you have already lost. Pray the Terrans never rise again. The Council chamber, normally a place of arrogant speeches and political maneuvering, fell into a suffocating silence. The chair of the Council, a venerable reptilian elder named Joro, rose to his feet. His voice shook as he read the findings. We believe this Earth to be a primitive cradle of an isolated species. But history names them differently. They were never Earth-born. They were Terrans. Gasps rippled through the chamber. To hear the name aloud was to feel the weight of legend pressing down. A young delegate scoffed. Surely this is exaggeration. My people have never heard of these Terrans. An elder from the Avis Dominion turned, his voice bitter. That is because our ancestors buried the name. The Terrans nearly ended us before the Council was ever formed. The chamber erupted into chaos. Old rivalries dissolved into shared dread as every species present remembered fragments their ancestors had passed in hushed warnings. Children's tales told in fear. Nightmares given form. Outside the chamber, the news spread faster than light. Armadas whispered it among their crews. Merchants muttered it in trade halls. Across countless systems, beings who had never seen Earth trembled at its rediscovered name. Terra has returned. In the outer colonies, soldiers who had mocked human defiance now stared at the word Terran painted boldly on captured transmissions. Some deserted. Some prayed. Admirals stalled their fleets, no longer eager to march on a world that history itself had cursed. Meanwhile, Earth, Terra, remained unaware of the scale of fear its name had unleashed. Humanity, divided as always, struggled to expand its reach, unaware that every word they spoke of Terra was a thunderclap across the galaxy. But the Council could not ignore what was rising. Reports came of human ships, crude, yes, but cunning. Of victories in skirmishes where they should have been crushed. Of a ferocity in battle that was more instinct than strategy. Each new report aligned too well with the old records. Terrans fought not for territory. not for glory, but with a refusal to ever bow. It was the same fire that had once consumed empires. The council convened again, this time in emergency session. The chamber glowed red with the urgency of war. "We must destroy them before they rise again," barked one delegate. "No," another hissed. "Do you not understand? The last time civilizations tried to destroy Terra, it was they who burned." The chair leaned forward. His voice was quiet, but every word struck like thunder. "It does not matter what we do. The name is awake again. Terra remembers itself. And if history is true, the stars themselves will tremble. And tremble they did. Across the spiral arms, the rediscovery of Terra's true name seeded dread. Empires mobilized fleets not to conquer, but to defend. Border worlds that had mocked Earth suddenly built fortresses. Old enemies forged alliances, not out of trust, but out of fear of what would come. The galaxy remembered, too late, that Terra was not just a world. It was a storm that had slept long enough. In the shadows of space, aboard ships marked with the rising banners of humanity, soldiers began to speak the old name proudly. No longer Earth, no longer fractured identities of nations and flags. They whispered the word like a vow, "We are Terrans," and as the echoes of that word spread, the council understood their mistake. For in their arrogance, they had awakened not a primitive species, but the return of a nightmare carved into history itself. When the council discovered Earth's real name, dread echoed across the stars. The fleet hung like a silver wall above the Sol system. Hundreds of warships, banners of the council's great powers glimmering across their hulls, blockaded the star humanity called home. The admirals called it a pacification campaign. To the council, Earth was nothing more than a primitive nuisance, a rebellious world unwilling to submit to galactic law. It would be simple: drop the fleets, subjugate the people, and carve another mark of conquest into the council's growing empire. But war is never as simple as arrogance believes. The first sign came from intercepted transmissions. Human vessels, small, crude things compared to the council's dreadnoughts, were coordinating with each other. Their language was rough, guttural, unlike the flowing tongues of the galaxy. The linguistic cores translated with ease. What caught the scholar's attention wasn't the language. It was the word, Terrans. The humans called themselves Terrans at first. The analysts filed it away as a cultural quirk. But when the name appeared in the encrypted database of the Council's central archives, alarms rang. Data strings hidden for millennia unlocked, and with them, fragments of ancient records came alive. The admirals of the fleet were summoned. Holograms flared to life, filling the command chamber with light. Historians, summoned in haste from the archives, spoke with trembling voices. This name is not new," one croaked. "It is ancient, too ancient." They projected images onto the table, charred ruins of cities, star systems marked in black. Accounts from 1,000 years past. Terrans. Endless war, endless fire. They cannot be broken, only endured until they vanish again. Our empire fell in weeks. The admirals frowned. These are legends, nothing more. Our fleets are invincible. But the historians pressed. The last time Terrans appeared in galactic record was during the Purge Wars. Entire civilizations erased. Empires that rivaled your fleets, gone in smoke. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then an admiral scoffed. "That was a millennium ago. My ships are here now. We will reduce these Terrans to ash." The historians said nothing more, but fear remained in their eyes. On the edge of Earth's orbit, the first engagement began. Council ships advanced in formation, shining walls of energy shields and massed cannons. The humans responded with a handful of frigates, patched together, primitive engines burning hot, weapons outdated by galactic standards. It should have been a slaughter. But the Terrans fought differently. They rammed ships instead of retreating. They burned engines red to close distance, unleashing volleys at point-blank range. Where most species prized survival, the Terrans wielded death as a weapon. A single human frigate detonated its reactor in the midst of a council squadron, annihilating 6 warships in one burst. The admirals froze. This was no battle. It was defiance given form, and through every intercepted channel, one word kept repeating. For Terra! Fear began to spread through the council fleets. Young officers whispered the word like a curse. Veterans remembered childhood warnings told in shadowy tones. Do not wake Terra. Entire crews hesitated at orders, unwilling to charge a foe whose very name carried mythic dread. The admirals punished hesitation with executions. But discipline could not smother fear. For every new report mirrored the old histories. Terrans who refused to surrender. Terrans who fought beyond reason. Terrans who made death their ally. It was the Purge Wars reborn. On the council homeworld, debates erupted in the Grand Chamber. Delegates argued furiously as reports streamed in. They are but primitives, one shouted. Primitives who cripple our fleets, another spat. The chair rose, his voice cold. It is the name. Do you not see? They have remembered themselves. Terrans. The chamber fell silent. The oldest among them shivered visibly. Our ancestors swore never to provoke them again, and yet, here we are. Back in Sol, the campaign dragged on. What should have taken weeks stretched into months. For every council ship destroyed, 10 more arrived. For every Terran ship lost, another seemed to rise from the void, scarred and burning, but still fighting. Admirals studied the enemy's strategies with growing unease. Terrans turned wreckage into weapons, mined their own planetary orbits, and sabotaged boarding attempts with terrifying efficiency. One captured recording chilled even the most hardened officers. A Terran soldier, bloodied and cornered, faced a squad of council troops. Instead of surrendering, he laughed, a sound raw and fierce. You think we fear death? He growled. We are Terrans. We carry war in our blood. Then he detonated. Himself, taking the squad with him. The recording spread across the fleets. For many, it broke their spirit. Finally, after months of attrition, the Council's fleets withdrew. They did not declare victory, nor even defeat. They simply left, their once proud banners dragging behind them like torn cloth. But the damage was done. The word had spread. Across the galaxy, species spoke of it with dread. Terrans. The name returned to every corner of civilization. Not just as an enemy, but as a legend reborn. Merchants rerouted their trade lines away from Sol. Border colonies built fortresses facing outward, fearing Terran expansion. And within the Council itself, whispers grew louder. If they survived our full fleets, what happens when they grow stronger? And on Earth, the Terrans themselves stood in the ashes of their battered fleets, bloodied but unbroken. Nations once, divided now, spoke with one voice. They looked to the stars, not with fear, but with fire in their eyes, for they remembered what they were, not earthlings, not mere humans, Terrans. And across the stars, the Council trembled, for history had returned, and this time Terra would not vanish. The Galactic Council's chamber was built to inspire awe. 1,000 banners hung from vaulted walls, each representing an empire, a species, a power sworn to the great order of the stars. Light refracted from the crystalline dome above, bathing the hall in a glow that suggested unity and peace. But on that day, unity was nothing but a fragile illusion. Delegates shouted across the floor, their voices rising in waves of anger, confusion, and fear. At the heart of it all was one world, small, blue, insignificant on any star map. Earth. The Council had long dismissed it as primitive, a backwater world whose people stubbornly resisted Council authority. Some argued the humans should be left to wither in their isolation. Others demanded immediate conquest to quell their defiance. But what silenced the chamber that day was not a fleet report or military projection. It was a name. The translation corps had been working tirelessly on. Intercepted human transmissions. They expected to find little more than crude battle speech and tactical chatter. Instead, they found something older, heavier. A word that chilled the processors themselves: Terra. When the report was delivered, the council chair, a massive insectoid, elder named Valor, paused. His mandibles clicked nervously as he repeated the word aloud: Terra. The sound carried like thunder through the chamber. For a moment, the delegates sat frozen. Then whispers broke, rippling outward like cracks in glass. The Avis representative's scales paled. The Zorith delegate dropped her datapad with a clatter. Even the stoic Celt, who prided themselves on emotionless logic, shifted uneasily in their seats. Impossible, one finally said. The name is forbidden. Buried. But the translation was clear. The humans called themselves not Earthborn, not mere children of a planet, but Terrans. Panic spread quickly. Historians were summoned, their dusty records dragged into the light of day. Hollow screens flickered with fragments of the Nightfall era, a time so ancient most species treated it as myth. Yet there it was, accounts written in fire and blood. The Terrans descend like storms, leaving only ash. No negotiation, no surrender. They break empires with relentless fury. Beware Terra, the cradle of war. The council chamber erupted in chaos. This is superstition, shouted one delegate. We cannot let myths dictate policy. Superstition? The Avis representative hissed. Tell that to the bones of my ancestors. It was Terran fleets that scorched half our colonies before the council even existed. Zorith Elder slammed a clawed hand against the table. They vanished for a reason. We swore never to speak their name again, and now you tell me they rise once more? Chairman Valor struggled to maintain order, pounding his staff against the stone floor. Enough! We are leaders of the galaxy. We will not cower before phantoms. Yet even as he spoke, his voice trembled. The chamber could not be calmed. Every delegate remembered the warnings whispered across generations, told in hushed tones. To their children, do not wake Terra. Do not cross Terra. Terra is death. And now, the forbidden name was back, spoken not in myth, but in the living tongues of humanity itself. Reports flowed in from the front lines. Council fleets encountering. Human resistance described battles unlike any they had seen before. Crude human ships fought with suicidal ferocity, ramming, detonating, sacrificing themselves not in desperation, but in grim resolve. Prisoners spat in the faces of their captors, declaring proudly, "We are Terrans. We kneel to no one." Each report deepened the chamber's fear. Behind the closed doors of the High Council, the debate grew darker. Some demanded immediate annihilation of Earth before its people could rise further. "Glass the planet. End it now," urged the Celt delegate, her voice cold. Others recoiled in horror. "Have you forgotten the records? When the last empire tried to destroy Terra, it was they who burned. Strike them, and you will only awaken their fury." The chamber split. Fear twisted into desperation. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Council did not feel in control. They felt hunted, haunted by the weight of history repeating itself. Beyond the chamber, the name spread faster than any fleet could travel. Merchants whispered it in darkened taverns. Soldiers muttered it before battles. Children heard it in their sleep. Terra, a word that carried with it every forgotten nightmare. Border colonies fortified their defenses. Some even abandoned their homes, fleeing deeper into the galaxy. Admirals, once proud, hesitated to send. Their fleets near Sol. The myth of Terra had become more powerful than any weapon. Meanwhile, on Earth itself, humanity was stirring. For centuries, they had called themselves Terrans in their own tongues, not knowing the weight the galaxy placed upon that name. Now, through intercepted communications, they learned the truth. Their very identity was a curse to their enemies. In the ruins of a bombarded city, human leaders gathered. They looked at one another, weary, bloodied, but unbroken. The galaxy fears our name, one said quietly. Then let them, another replied. If they remember Terra as war, let us remind them why. For the first time in centuries, fractured nations united under one banner, not Earth, not fragile alliances of convenience, but Terra reborn. Back in the council chamber, the chair's voice broke as he delivered the final pronouncement. The humans call themselves Terrans. Whether myth or truth, whether coincidence or fate, it does not matter. The stars remember. And if history has taught us anything, he paused, mandibles twitching, eyes scanning the chamber of terrified faces. It is that when Terra rises, civilizations fall. And so, across the galaxy, a single word echoed. Terra, not just a name, not just a world, but the return of something. Older, fiercer, unstoppable. The Council had sought to judge Earth. Instead, they had unearthed a legend. And as the dread spread from system to system, one truth became undeniable. When the Council discovered Earth's real name, dread echoed across the stars.